being sick, it doesn't mean that we all have any mental issue per se. This is a total myth, because we can say we are okay without any therapy when we are okay. But the pain literally just surprised us so much. And then we can just say, oh yes, I was overestimating myself. So for me, helping people going through this difficult time, very often loneliness, amazing loneliness, the experiential with the envelope of wisdom is just priceless.
Cancer is just something that we all have to recognize, acknowledge, cope with, live with, struggle with, rage upon, crush, and even thrive with. This show is more than knowing and fighting or beating cancer. It's more than just relaying science, hope, and technology. Together, our purpose is to demystify cancer, take away as much fear out of the diagnosis, treatment, and process as we can, defeat its grip on our lives. This is The Cancering Show. Welcome to The Cancering Show. Today, we're going to talk about a different aspect of the cancering journey. We're going to dive into the healing power of art therapy with Margaret Wielbut, an art therapist who brings creativity and light to our cancer patients at the Mitchell Cancer Institute. Margaret shares how art therapy became her passion and how it's going to help patients process their cancer journey through their creative expression. Now, I will tell you, this is amazing. These are patients who are not just doing art therapy on a separate day from their visit. They're actually doing art therapy during their infusions. Join us as we talk about the marriage of this art therapy and psychology and how it's making a difference at our cancer center. Margaret, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up here in Mobile, Alabama.
I entered the time in my life that it's I call this last chapter of my work. And my husband also wanted to live somewhere where it's warmer, so we don't have to deal with any resemblance of snow.
We are having this conversation as we are questioning whether it will snow in a few days here in Mobile. We'll see. As you're listening to this, you'll know the answer.
Yeah, this is very fresh for all the people from Alabama. I've heard this today.
That's right. Well, tell us how art therapy became your passion.
It started very early, even though I didn't know the name. It just happened in my mind, which is really very difficult to explain because this concept usually it's like, okay, I learned I was good at something. But in this case, no. I remember myself praying for some interest in my life, that I will do something for myself that I enjoy. It's not imposed on me by somebody. And just before this program, I told this story about my dream of having a ladybug club for all the kids from the neighborhood when I was 6 years old, probably. And yes, and just like I was always interested in drawing, even though I never thought that this is going to be, something of my profession, and I never dream about art school or anything like this. This was just my healing medium. It was just my friend or my, something nice that you go like to, to cafeteria to spend some quality time, but also restful. And this is how it started. And just it turned out that I could do this not earlier than when I came to the United States. Wow. Because art therapy program is not very well known or it's not as popular. And the moment that I was able to learn more, or we started learning more about internet, I just discovered that art therapy master program at Wayne State University was available.
Yeah.
And I was able to donate my 60 minutes to drive there and back. And I graduated from art therapy program in Michigan. And this is the beginning.
Well, it has been an amazing effort for our cancer center and our patients. I want to delve a little bit deeper. How would you define art therapy?
Of course, people can read easily in all kind of, informative books. But for me, if I can very kind of easily and more emotionally describe, it's a perfect marriage between art and psychology. If they work, the art therapy work, therapist is successful, I would say. Mm. So this is what was also the prerequisite when I entered the program, the hours of from psychology as well as a bachelor degree in art. So this was the beginning, and then of course there is much more when you study the art therapy program. Usually it's a program, master program, 2-3 years old, depends of where do you study. So very often people are very surprised that it is such a body of work before, because from what people tell me, it is like, oh, so you have to study for this? But it is just how it looks, and we have this tendency to kind of observe others and minimize. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can do it.
Right.
Which is of course no. So it was a lesson for me too.
Yes. Well, I think I had heard of art therapy before, and I think as an audience, we can all think of, times where it seems like art therapy would be good, kids with trauma or, dealing with a particularly, scary or unfortunate event. But I never thought about art therapy in cancer patients. What brought you to the Cancer Center?
This was, I think, a little bit coincident, because in Poland as a teacher, I work as an elementary school teacher. I was sent to the hospital with children with contagious diseases. Mm-hmm. And I immediately noticed that it is really almost hopeless or kind of not successful that children are not able, when they are sick, or whoever is sick, it is very difficult to be interested in something and even feed the passion. So with this in my mind, I started going with all this idea to work, all these ideas that will bring something special, something that I can provide and vibrate to them. Oh, this is something special. If I don't have this, this little spark in my eyes, they are not interested. Right. So I needed to first work on myself and then be able to kind of resonate with them. So sometimes it was by humor, sometimes it was by surprise, and this is what art and movement and music were very helpful.
I think so. In doing some preparation for our talk today, I was looking at quotes. I couldn't find the one that I wanted, which is really this idea that fear kills creativity. And the person that was speaking on this talked about using creativity to overcome the fear. But I did find this quote from Brené Brown, which I think is amazing. If we want to make meaning, we need to make art. Cook, write, draw, doodle, paint, scrapbook, take pictures, collage, knit, rebuild an engine, sculpt, dance, decorate, act, sing. It doesn't matter. As long as we're creating, we're cultivating meaning.
Yes, I totally agree. And, at the beginning, art therapy, even for us, sometimes seems like, oh, yes, is this really important? And then it was such an enlightenment for all of us that development of neurology and the science of checking human brain just supported us immediately. Yes. Mm-hmm. So the moment I remember, I said, okay, I studied art therapy, but now I need to remember all the things that happened new in neurology and neuroscience. And I said, okay, I will start. I will try. But then, of course, I was middle-aged lady, and it was very difficult for me to memorize. And even though I had my eye kind of open for research, it was very difficult for me. Maybe if I had some neuroscientist as a friend, it would be easier. But to go back to your question or just the topic, of course, it is in our DNA, what I say. But, the answer is much more complicated. And I'm sure that people there is a musician, he passed away, unfortunately, but he was a neuroscientist and he also loved music. And he was talking how much they learn about creativity and music. Mm-hmm. The same is with fine arts, like Absolutely. You said. I am coming from family that both of my grandmothers, they were, the grandfathers were working on producing flax, and then they kind of make this flax as a more resemble fabric or thread things. And then my grandmothers had looms, and they were, I forgot the word, but they were weaving. They were weaving the bed sheets. Wow. So everything like this, it is in our DNA, and we cannot. Even sometimes people don't have this interest, but they sometimes tell me, but you know what? My hands are permanently moving and I don't know why. And sometimes people tell me, I cannot pray. My thoughts are all over. And of course, it is proven now that if people very often are doing art, some kind of meditative and spiritual art, they remember better. Mm-hmm. They have a sense of purpose.
Right.
And they even to rest, it is easier for them that way.
I love that. We talk all the time about the mental aspects of the cancer journey, and that one of them really is to create meaning out of the experience, to have it mean something to you or to your family. How do you create hope? How do you lower anxiety? And the more I read, it seems that art therapy does all three.
Yeah, I don't know if we have time for this. I can talk about this all day long, but not many weeks ago, I had a new patient and a caregiver, probably wife, and he was not feeling well, so he was more passive, but definitely this patient's wife was so excited to have this. I don't know, maybe she was, I don't know, sad, or, I need to do my assessment in 3 minutes maximum. Right. So I definitely sense that she needs a little entertainment like this, I will say.
Yeah.
So I introduced a mandala. This is very typical for art therapy. And she said, yes, of course. She even didn't ask question. She just immediately started drawing on the black paper, the circular shape. And she was in her own world. I mean, I didn't ask question. I usually just back up and just come whenever I need. And then when she finished, she was so happy. And she was explaining all these details, what she drew and how she drew and why. She even wrote a little adjectives and nouns, or whatever it means for her. So I said, this is amazing. Yeah. I just felt for her because it was from her soul.
Mm-hmm. The nurses described to me when I went down there recently, a gentleman who was very closed off. It was his first chemo appointment, and he really wasn't saying more than a couple of words, and they really were worried that maybe he was sicker than the doctors thought, or that he wouldn't call if he wasn't feeling well, that maybe the teaching they were trying to give him about his medications wasn't kind of sinking in. And then you went in. And they thought, good luck, Margaret. This guy is not for you. And you cracked him open. You got through the fear and gave him something else to focus on it. And he has been smiling and friendly and laughing since.
Yeah, the same I observe with the work that the nurses are doing, which gives me such a warm place in my heart, because it tells me that we understand each other. And if we do not feel exactly that this is the day, we can always count on the other person if something like this happened. But usually the miracle, like you described, happened this often. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It is hard to even remember everything. I wish I had memory so good that I can each day spend few minutes and just write them down.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really surprised me is when you were talking about creating art, it's not always paper and drawing materials. There's so many tactile things, the paper crafts, and so much more 3D, expressions of creativity than I had imagined.
Yeah, it's also conversation. If I do converse with people, it doesn't mean that I gossip and, I don't do art therapy. And usually this is just, it can be the beginning, and this is why the experiential that I express or show today, it is just the conversational introduction to what art therapy can be. And, usually art therapy is to use like counseling. People are using their favorite medium in order to set a specific language for them, so the art therapist can kind of be a detective and kind of figure out, of course, looking for the patterns. I never tell any story just after one drawing. However, being sick, it doesn't mean that they have that we all have any mental issue per se. This is a total myth, because we can say we are okay without any therapy when we are okay. But the pain comes from nowhere. I mean, it just surprised us so much. And then we can just say, oh yes, I was overestimating myself.
Right.
So for me, helping people going through this difficult time, very often loneliness, amazing loneliness.
Absolutely.
The experiential with the envelope of wisdom is just priceless.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are hesitate to even talk to me, but when I slowly start, they are started smiling. And
the other thing that I think about, and one of my patients made this comment about our infusion suite. This is where the patients go for chemotherapy. And I was initially skeptical about that being the location for you to work in art therapy, because it seemed that was a busy place and a very clinical place. And maybe we needed to have it in a separate area or separate section. And you advocated that it was, best for patients who were at that moment receiving their chemotherapy. And the comment that was made was how light infused our infusion suite is. And it is literally filled with light with the big window, but it's also filled with light. It's not heavy. It's not dark. It's not sad. And I think that surprises people, because not just you, but so many people there are busy creating a sense of joy and a sense of purpose. And, even, yes, having the art that patients have created on the walls and in the room it's a really special component of that.
Yes, I'm so glad that you mentioned this, because they are two newest group projects. It is collaborative art created by people that was initiated by the group that Kate is having for people they graduated from infusion. And we had longer session with people after cancer. And what they said, that this is amazing. We are like in a huge living room, and we are learning from each other. And the learning is priceless. Yeah. And this gave me immediately idea that I will introduce this who are during the class of infusion. I will tell them what the people from the perspective of being graduated felt. Mm-hmm. So use wisely the time that, they have available, this huge living room. And people started talking more, observing others. If you do something and it is interesting, it is contagious. Yes. It's positively contagious in the hospital language.
Absolutely.
And this is one proof that it is working beautifully in so many areas that it's even hard to explain. So if you're ever interested, it is the one with pebbles and little soft puffs from. Okay. It's on the big wall, and just after, when I spoke with few people who did this project, they just started talking about how much they already learn from being together and learning from each other. So, and then at the same time, people started talking about nutrition and all the value of food, etc. And of course, one thought from the other, it is a little bit like the Montessori philosophy.
Yes.
We started kind of making project of vegetables and fruits and how people perceive them. It may seems funny and childish, but it is true. Mm-hmm. We have our own likes and dislikes about food. Depends of the culture that we grew up
Sure.
or whoever cooked in our family. And now it is just like so bright. And I put this especially on the black. So it is just like bombarding you with these colors that makes this room even lighter.
I love it. What's next for art therapy? I know we've expanded the program from the infusion suite at Fairhope to downtown Mobile to the larger infusion suite. What do you see as your next big game?
We were thinking about creating something like this for children. The need is much bigger probably than for grown-ups. The only what it is really challenging is the fact that the therapist need to also consider that it's therapy at the same time for entire family.
Right.
And not everybody is ready for this. And the sessions are usually, especially for the outpatients, are just like so. When the doctors are coming, it is 5 minutes. Then we have a little time. And then the doctor is coming and then the nurse is coming. So it is kind of chopped and not everybody has tolerance for that.
Right.
But if we have, for instance, the art therapy for children, they already are in the hospital. Or perhaps if the outpatients children are coming with the parents and let's say they have maybe 5 hours of infusion and then they know that, okay, we still can spend 1 hour if the children can afford, energy-wise.
Right.
So this is not because if something is so... I forgot this word, but so kind of in little pieces,
yes,
it is not working.
Sure.
It is not working and, it never worked. In teaching, even with doctors, you need to have entire process in order to start working.
Exactly. So. Well, I appreciate that you brought up and you said they can't afford it energy-wise. But I just want to make sure everybody is aware of this is made available to patients entirely free of charge thanks to the Zoe Foundation. Tell us a little bit about the foundation and how you were able to connect that three-way beautiful relationship between the Zoe Foundation, yourself, and the Mitchell Cancer Institute.
It's a long story about this, but I am so blessed that Zoe Foundation happened, and I try to use even the little summary of how it happened in this experiential of the wise envelopes or envelopes of wisdom, because the story tells us that Zoe Foundation was created not in the vacuum. It was just the effect of an amazing experience that was so strong and so vibrant that started very, very probably slowly, however, with a big fire inside. And having children, it's very difficult. Being sick is very difficult. And to combine these two together, it just makes almost impossible. Mm-hmm. So when Kim and Zoe were kind of bonding, art was very significant for them, I am sure. Even though I never met Kim and never met Zoe, I just learned from the mutual friend that it was very vibrant feeling that awoken all this foundation that now it's supporting probably 7 centers in the United States.
Wow, that's incredible. Margaret, for patients who aren't at a cancer center with an art therapist, as you mentioned, there's 7 centers and probably more not connected to the Zoe Foundation, but there's so many cancer patients out there who don't have access to this. What would you say to those patients and their families? How can they bring the healing power of art to their cancer journey?
I thought about this, especially I like to think about this when fewer patients are visiting that day. There are options from other centers that have different foundation, etc., of suggesting the group project for people who live close by or have transportation and can come either late afternoon or even, one day that will be designated for this, and we can support a group that are very beneficial for all of them, that they can learn in a smaller group, like 8 people, for instance. This will be one. We also can have more involvement in patients' art display, because this is also very important. I know that many people like to have their name on, and it is totally normal, and I encourage, because very often we have work that it's not satisfying enough, so a little bit of satisfaction always help. I also had a chance to talk with few people at the cancer center in Mobile about, I don't even know how it's called, but it is like a little booth on the first floor. I unfortunately need to show off all my art supplies that sometimes makes a little mess, or however, I shouldn't say mess, just more artistic environment than hospital environment. So those are just like little ideas that we can use, because I don't really know what is the use of this booth, that it can be definitely either a place to keep the supplies or even to advertise more, because sometimes people don't even know what I'm doing.
Sure.
So they're asking me for juice and snack, which I don't mind. And also, maybe a little bit of exhibit in this booth.
Sure.
Or some kind of, if we have very good quality art, we can also show or teach people. Sure. Whatever is, the imagination of all these workers from the Mitchell Cancer Institute, I will go for it.
I think that's great. And for our cancer patients who are far and wide, if they are on a cancering journey, would you suggest to them that they buy some art supplies or take up some sort of creative aspect to their journey?
Definitely. This is one of my part when they are leaving. I always suggest that this is a infusion session to celebrate. So I always ask what they would like to do, if there is something that they want to take home. And it is really amazing feeling for me that this very positive ending comes from this. Like one, as example, one lady said, yes, this is my last project. And you know what I did? I created a special place in my house that nobody is taking anything. It's safe. And I brought all these art pieces that I created and created some kind of like altar. She didn't use this name.
Yes.
But just to remind how far she went.
That's amazing. I can't think of a better place to end. Thank you so much for coming into the studio today, Margaret. Your talents and your light are obvious.
Thank you very much.
Art therapy is such a unique path to healing offered during this cancering journey. Through Margaret's work at the Mitchell Cancer Institute, we are seeing how creative expression can break through really negative emotions like fear and anxiety and uncertainty, and instead create meaning and bringing light to these difficult moments. Whether you have access to formal art therapy or not, find ways to embrace creativity during your treatment. This may help you to process emotions and find those moments of joy, maybe even reconnect with a deeper part of yourself. Thank you for listening to The Cancering Show. Until next time, keep creating, keep cancering, and take care of yourselves. Thanks again for listening. And don't forget to submit your questions at www.cancering.com. We're here for all of those questions and we'll get you the answers. This show is brought to you by the University of South Alabama Mitchell Cancer Institute. MCI is a cutting-edge cancer research and patient center built to fight cancer smarter in Mobile and Baldwin County, Alabama. Our researchers and clinicians focus daily on the struggle against cancer, serving a potential catchment population of more than 4.1 million people, with a singular focus of advancing cancer diagnosis, treatment, and prevention throughout the Gulf Coast and beyond with science, technology, and hope. Want to know more about the Mitchell Cancer Institute? Visit us at usamci.com or search for us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Mitchell Cancer Institute is a member of USA Health. To learn more about all of our hospitals, clinics, and services, visit usahealthsystem.com.